Well, we made it to Friday. It's Friday, October 28th, 2022. This Day Weather Podcast brought to you by Cowboy State Daily. Check them out at cowboystatedaily.com or on their Facebook page. Rolling into the weekend and rolling right on into that Halloween Monday coming on up. Really nice conditions are coming. For the next several days, there's really nothing bad at all coming. It's going to be pretty good for this time of year. No major concerns for traveling, hunters. Looks like trick-or-treat weather for most of the region is going to be very, very good on Monday evening. And we're looking at no major travel concerns. Now, there is going to be some wind. It isn't going to be perfect. We're going to have some brisk winds at times. We're also going to have, at times, high and mid-level cloudiness. But all in all, for this time of year, we're going to again be blessed with another decent weekend of autumn weather conditions. And you can see why in the satellite photo. We've got this strip here of high pressure and dry, stable air from California to North Dakota and all points in between. A lot of mid and high level cloudiness here in the Pacific Northwest that really isn't going to amount very much. All of the action is going to be out here in the Pacific. That will arrive here later in the forecast period. Going to be wet in parts of the southern plains and Midwest, but the western United States is going to be fair. Now, we talked earlier in the week about that recurving typhoon. The system is continuing to strengthen. You can really see that nice swirl on the satellite imagery. It's going to take a track up and go just east of China here later this weekend into early next week, then take that trip up to the jet stream. Here it is. Now, this is by Monday morning, Halloween morning. It is likely going to become a typhoon and then take that track and get hooked up with the jet stream as we were talking about earlier in the week. And what that will do, and we'll talk about that in a minute, it's going to initiate changes in our weather mid to late next week. But for the weekend, boy, it's a real yawner. Notice the colors here and notice the black lines generally flow west to east across the western United States. We call this zonal flow when it's generally west to east. And when that happens, you tend to have near average temperatures. When you have west-east flow with the wind, remember that wind is going to go perpendicular to the continental divide in the mountains. So east of the mountains and in the mountain gaps, you tend to get a little bit breezy in this pattern. Also, we showed you a slide yesterday of lenticular clouds that form when winds go perpendicular to the mountain ranges. So we'll see some of those this weekend as well. But this is not a pattern that's going to bring any bad weather, and that will probably hold through next Tuesday. Now, beyond next Tuesday, things begin to get a little more interesting. Here's the precipitation forecast through Monday. You can see the Pacific Northwest, British Columbia, the mountains of Alberta, British Columbia there getting into some snow, but the interior west, the western high plains, very, very little going on weather-wise. But we will have some wind. These are the wind gusts between today and through the weekend. So nothing terribly, but it will be a bit brisk and breezy in some areas, especially up around Great Falls, Cut Bank, and into the wind-prone areas of Wyoming, some gusty winds at times. But nothing that we're not used to around here. Now, kind of throw this slide in because I'm going to show you some big, big differences in the models. What's going on? Why the confusion? I'm going to show you the confusion here in a minute. A lot of it has to do with what happens when that energy gets hooked up into the jet stream in the Pacific later on. So look at the differences between the computer model solutions. The three major models we look at a lot, but we look at the European model, which you're seeing here, the American model, which is called the GFS or the Global Forecast System, and then the GEM, which is the model that comes out of Canada. If you look at the three different scenarios unfolding here, this is why you got to be really, really careful with weather modeling and climate modeling and really take it with a grain of salt. I'm going to show you three different scenarios, all using the same set of data to initialize themselves. So try to figure that out, but that's how it works with these different models. This is the European model, and this is by 6 a.m. Thursday of next week. We have a significant low going into California. This would bring West Coast some good rain, some snow in the mountains, and eventually this type of low goes through the Four Corners area and ends up becoming a possible front range storm system. It's a pattern we've seen before, and it's a pattern that you start to expect to see at least the chances of it increase this time of year. But if you look at what potentially could happen by next weekend, the European model by next weekend has a strong low over eastern Colorado. This would be a high impact storm. But will it happen? I don't know, because you take a look at the Canadian model, it's not even close. look at the differences here. That is just not only a difference with the low here and up here, but look at the big difference in the weather modeling right there when we go back and take a look between those two. Then let's look at the American model, the GFS model. All right, well, it's got the low all the way down near, well, El Paso, while the other European model's got the low here and the Canadian model's got the low here. What does this mean? This means low confidence. We are confident of a change in the weather late next week, but we got to see what scenario unfolds. Which scenario is most likely? Well, I'd put even bets on all those solutions that I looked at and showed you here. So the weather could get quite interesting if you're a weather nerd and a weather watcher to see what develops during the second half of next week. But from this weekend through the first half of the new week, we're just going to be sitting and waiting to see what evolves. Needless to say, the weather in the western United States gets a lot more active during the second half of next week and potentially into next weekend as well. Have yourself a great weekend. We'll see you Monday.